So to start us off, let's look at what is causing climate change. In other words, where carbon emissions are coming from. So in 2019, this is where all emissions came from. China emitted the most, followed by the US, then India, and Russia, and then everyone else. So just four countries emitted more than half the world's emissions. But this graph, this chart, sort of points the finger at China, and it's really missing two key points about the climate crisis. Number one is the emissions per person. So China and India emit a lot, but they also happen to have more than a billion people each. Per person, they emit way less. The average US resident emits far more than a resident of almost any other country, and even double or triple what countries like Germany, France, or the UK are emitting, and 10 times what the average Indian emits. And number two, historical responsibility. You may have heard of the idea that the global carbon budget. Basically, that says to avoid catastrophic climate change, we can emit a certain amount of megatons of CO2 ever. It's like a bucket being filled, and once it's full, it overflows, and that's bad news. That's climate catastrophe. So China might be the one who's filling the bucket the fastest right now, but they've only really started filling it much at all in the past decade or two. Since the start of the Industrial Revolution, the US has emitted far, far more than any other country. It single-handedly has filled up a quarter of the entire global bucket, despite being only 4% of the world's population. In fact, more than double the emissions of China, despite having a population 4 times smaller. And that's not to mention that a bunch of China's emissions are produced in making stuff for people in other countries, mostly the US and the rest of the global north. So the point of all this is just to say, some countries are far, far more to blame for the climate crisis than others, with the US happening to top that list.